All righty, we will call tonight's meeting of the Beaver Boardwalk Community Oversight Committee to order. First order of business is agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? Everyone? And then Beth?
I'd like to make an introduction of myself. I'm Jan.
Oh, right.
Oh,
Nice
yes,
to meet
sorry.
you.
Will you introduce yourself to Jan, Bill?
Indeed.
Oh, you did? Okay, perfect. Good. Hey, Beth?
Well, I don't have an addition, but I'm just asking for maybe in some of the agendas, a little bit of clarification on some of the items, like introduction, director of community services. I mean, that sounds great, but I don't know who's being introduced.
We'll get there.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
and then even the who's like the Maxwell Bridge ramp update, like who's updating that is, you know, I mean, it might just, and even the summary of the grant application, you go, oh yeah, that's the free application. So I'm just sort of making just a general comment that it might be nice that some of the agenda items have a little couple more words to that. So
Oh, okay. Noted. Noted. Okay. All right, any additions? There's no additions. We'll look for a motion to accept the agenda. Jan?
We make a motion to accept the agenda.
Thank you, Jan. Everyone all in favor?
I know we don't have a minute person trying to sign it.
Oh, we need a minute person. Any volunteers to take minutes? Oh, yeah. One.
I can just type.
What's that, Doug? Sorry, we can.
I'm on remote here, so I can just type. I can do that.
Excellent.
I'll just get a Word doc on the side here.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate that. So there was a motion to adopt the agenda from Jan, and it was voted unanimously to adopt the agenda. All right, item 2.0, adoption of meeting minutes. Everybody had a chance to look over meeting minutes from last month. If there's no changes or corrections, we need a motion to adopt those. Yes.
I guess along the same lines, I'm wondering if we could just add a title, like meeting minutes and recorder name. Like, cause it still says meeting agenda. So it'd be nice to just have the title, like a title and the recorder. And the minutes are okay, but again, like occasionally could add one or two words. Like new Bebop member introduction, it's Bill. We could have just put Bill's name down. Yeah. And things like that, but I think the title would be helpful, like saying it.
Yeah, we should be on there. I don't think we record who takes the minutes, so do we?
I can go back and look at Jen's to see, but I'll also reach out to Trevor and just go through that with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other changes, we'd still need a motion to adopt. Alice?
To adopt the agenda minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank you, Alice. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, and the minutes are adopted unanimously. That brings us to information items 3.1, introduction of Director of Community Services. Heather.
For this evening's meeting, we have the new Director of Community Services, Deborah Jupe, joining us on the screen. Deb, you are muted, just so you know. I think she's just going to sit in and observe for today. She's been heavily briefed on what we've got going on out there in the boardwalk. Deb, an introduction from you to the group.
Yeah, I'd like to say a few words if I may. It's really a pleasure to meet you all and to see that there's a group of such concerned citizens interested in the boardwalk in Hinton. One of the first things I looked at when I came to Hinton for an interview was the boardwalk, of course. And I just a little bit about myself, not that I'm tooting my own horn, but 18 years in local government, 19 years now, I think, and more than half of that in community services. I began work as a parks worker for BC Parks. And I also operated a company where we operated provincial parks with my husband and I. So long history in park work. And so I love it. It's my first love. And I also wanted to let you know that I have some familiarity with boardwalks because I worked on a project to facilitate one in the city of Lacombe. Now, I don't think that project's come to realization, due to water levels, that problems that they have there. But the community was riveted by the idea of a boardwalk and the beauty of them. And I think every community, I think most people feel the same way, that boardwalks really bring you into an aquatic environment and a parks experience that's really like no other, because you really get out on the water. So I'm very enthusiastic about boardwalks just generally. And like I said, I'm really happy to see that there's so many citizens in Hinton that are, concerned enough to come out after a day's work to have a meeting and to facilitate it. So very pleased to meet you all.
Are there any questions, burning questions for Deb?
Yeah.
I was curious if you could remind me on what exactly community service covers and entails in the town.
Sure, thanks. Well, at the town of Hinton, it primarily is parks, recreation, and culture, arts and culture, which Heather Way, of course, is the manager of that department or functional area collection. Not sure what we call it, Heather.
Service branch.
Service branch, thank you. That's right. That's kind of new to Hinton, unique to Hinton. Then there's family and community support services. So that's basically social services, preventative in nature. And then we have library as well. But community services can encompass quite a few different community interfacing sorts of service delivery that municipalities do. So I've been in charge of airports before, and golly, just all kinds of different liaisons with service groups and so on. Quite a range can be included there.
Cool, thanks.
Awesome.
Is Deborah gonna be part of our group moving forward?
I don't know. She's not in the terms of reference. I think largely today Deb just wanted to meet you guys. We do have her here now. Put faces to names, that kind of thing, but I can expect that I will be working closely with her for some direction on the project side of things. But as it stands right now, she's not in the terms of reference. Okay.
So
Sorry,
go ahead, Deborah.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry. I'll be interested in maybe coming to listen if there's significant issues that you're discussing and deciding on. Sorry, Albert, if you wanted to say something there.
Well, I was just going to clarify that Deborah's director of the
Community services?
I know that she's director of community services, which is the branch of the municipal government that looks after all of this, and so this group falls under her purview as well. Yeah, so that's why she's here. She's fairly new to the organization and familiarizing herself with everything that's under her watchful gaze.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah, Beth?
Deborah, your voice dropped a couple times, like when you were talking, so like it was a difficult to hear you occasionally.
Well, I beg your pardon. Was there anything that, was it during my introduction of my past experience, or?
Well, I think Albert just covered off the last bits. Yeah, no, that was
Yeah.
fine. I just thought you just mentioned
There's a lot of value in hearing the committee discuss an item to get an idea of how the thinking is, or items. And then, so it's one thing to look at minutes and agendas and get reports from Heather, updates from Heather, but it's another thing to hear you discussing, issues. So it would be a privilege from time to time to listen in.
You should watch the videos, they're riveting.
Yeah, so we do record them, Deb, and they are up on our YouTube channel with the town. So if you want to go back and learn the entire history and just get on the voyage with us, you know where to find the YouTube channel.
Well, I might do that because
I know you might.
I find this sort of facility fascinating. It's so high value, and the fact that it's been steered by a group of community members and elected officials is pretty cool. So yeah, I might do that.
All right, any other questions for Deborah? Okay, if there's nothing else, we are going to move on to 3.2 Maxwell Lake Bridge. I'm assuming that's not Bridget tender update, but Bridge tender update.
Bridget. How did I miss that? Oh, Bridget. All right, so this item is on the agenda based on a request from Beth to get an update from Development and Infrastructure Services regarding Maxwell Lake Bridge. I was able to quickly have a chat with Mr. Russo, and Debbie. And ultimately, they are proceeding. So there was a period of time where we thought that the application to West Fraser and Freya for our grant may affect their work on the bridge, right? Depending on what council had thought about the report that I had brought. The report that I brought about the Beaver Boardwalk Committee and about our grant that we are seeking did not trigger any impacts to Winston's project. So the last version that you guys saw when Diana brought in the variations is what's going forward. I did try and see if they had time to join us. They do not, but Winston said he can pull together something that he would be comfortable with me circulating to the group via email, probably next week is what he was saying. That's that, if there's any questions.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
I'm new here, so I'm just wondering what, how long has this proposal to the government been for the grant, and how long has it been going on?
For ours?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I took this position in June. I don't know why I'm looking at you like you would know, June, and was made aware of it at that time. So we've been working on bringing it forward since then.
I'm just curious,
Yeah.
I'm just curious because I'm on another board and they wrote a proposal for between two agencies, and within 9 days it was approved and submitted. 9 days.
Mhm.
And then another friend of mine with the University of British, who proposed a $10 million grant to get some helicopter or some ambulances in Ghana, Kenya, and Nigeria, into whatever province of Nigeria, and that took 3 weeks. So I was wondering what's taking so long.
Oh, so yeah, so the largest reason is actually that, one, we had to bring an item back to council for approval of funds. Then we have to, of course, bring items back to this table, hash it out a number of times. It probably came back 3 or 4 times, and with our meetings only being typically monthly. But we do have an update on the grant on the agenda for tonight, so I'm excited about that.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh,
Doug and then Beth.
Maybe just checking in that everything is still looking good for construction in kind of the January, February timeframe.
we'll get to that, Doug, when we do the update on the grant itself. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the
yeah,
timelines for you guys.
thanks.
Okay, so I guess like, there's 2 different things there. There's the grant is for the boardwalk restoration and update. And then we were, I think, still talking about the ramps that has a separate money, a separate budget, which is already approved and available for the work. But okay, but my question on the ramps was like, so Mr. Russo is going to circulate an update to us next week. And then would we have a chance to discuss that at our next meeting? Like, how do you see?
No,
that?
based on the conversation, based on the conversation that I had with him, they have a motion that stands from council. The decision has been made. The only thing that would have triggered a change would have been if my report came and impacted their work on the ramps. That didn't happen. So from their perspective, they have a decision made by council, and I'll turn to Albert if you think any different.
So when it came to council before, the only difference that council dictated between what the design was previously and what's going to be going out for tender is that there's a split between the piling work and the decking work, whereas previously it was tendered as a one full package.
Okay, and if I could still carry, Heather, what was your report?
Remember, we had to bring a report asking council if we could spend Beaver Boardwalk maintenance dollars on the FRIA application and the engineering and the design and all those things. And at that time, we had thought that perhaps council may give us direction that would alter what Winston and his crew are up to, but that didn't happen.
Alice?
So my understanding from the meeting with council where they decided to split the tender was the intention was to see if they could get a cheaper bid. That was my understanding in from the discussion, is that was why the project was retendered, was to see if it could get lower the amount. So I thought, or based on that discussion, that the dollars. Like, I don't remember there ever being a motion for council approving the dollar amount that was attached to that tender, but I could be mistaken.
I can,
Yeah, I was just gonna.
yeah, that was the intent, was to try and get the tender amount down. But the budget for it's already approved. There's grant funding and budget funding that's available for it.
Okay. So if you can't bring the amount down, then it will go forward without council having any
If,
more.
if it's over the budgeted amount, it will have to come back to council for approval.
Otherwise, we'll go out. Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
I'm trying to figure out what you're saying about the ramps, like what's the difference between the ramps and the rest of it? It's two separate parts of it. I didn't understand. I'm kind of lost in that ramp part.
So while Heather hands that out, I can give my interpretation. So the boardwalk replacement is a separate project from the bridge ramp replacement. The bridge was a standalone project that was. Yeah, 2017 it originally was. And there was a design for gravel approaches on both sides of the bridge. But that was deemed to be environmentally damaging, so the gravel ramps were removed, but a workable option had to be found. Sorry, so it went back to administration for a while and they came up with a recommendation for wooden ramps similar to boardwalk construction. But because that was originally part of the big bridge project, not part of the boardwalk project, it's separate funding and a separate project than the boardwalk replacement.
The stairs were put in place instead.
Temporarily,
Okay,
they were
good.
just
I'm glad
temporary.
temporary because I felt like a paraplegic going downstairs. I went downstairs a little while ago, I was able to get to it, the water level, I could see it, I got to it, and I felt like I was falling down the stairs. I actually tripped over myself because it's so poorly done.
Well, the stairs were just a temporary direction that was given by council so that there could be access over the bridge. Otherwise, there's a meter high jump.
First step.
So until a permanent solution was found, there was a direction to put some stairs in, so it could be used at least.
Thanks, clarifying. Got it.
Did you want to add anything, Heather?
That's
Yeah,
I guess I wasn't following completely. I thought that the ramps would come back for another discussion to our table, like we would look at the final sort of plans. Because that west ramp, like I honestly, I keep looking at that and say, do we really need this? All you have to do is reroute the end of the boardwalk to meet the bottom of the north ramp, and you could just get rid of that west ramp. So I guess I've sort of missed the boat here, but I thought it would come back to our committee for one final discussion of the plans before they went out.
Like I said, if it had triggered that change, but right now Winston has no mechanism to change what council has directed him to do. So even if he brought it here, I think it would be a good discussion, but I don't know that that would dictate he bring it back to council for reconsideration.
But I think, like, we're an oversight committee and when those ramps are put in, I know a lot of people are gonna be upset. They can't envision the visual, because interruption that the ramps will bring. So when they see them, they're going to be upset, and it will be like our committee that would have implied approval of those designs. So I'm just bringing this up one more time, like I kind of do have, for some reason, I was thinking that it was going to come back for discussion.
Because we did talk about that, Beth, when I brought our report, right? We talked about if this happens, it has to come back because then we have to figure out how we want the two projects to work together. But that didn't happen. And I just want to give an opportunity, to Doug.
hey, Doug,
Well, this agenda item was just an update on the tender project, but so far the update from administration is, it's pretty sparse, other than we have a report coming next week. So I'd really like to see the timeline, as maybe that'll answer a bunch of questions that I have. So is there maybe a mechanism to suggest we move on to the next agenda item, the timeline that Heather was alluding to?
Do you want to talk about the bridge ramp timeline when we do the
Oh, I don't
Grant
have a
application?
bridge ramp timeline. That's, I have a timeline for our grant.
okay.
Yeah.
Does Winston have anything you can share? You know, when it might be going?
Yeah, I think, I know that in the next couple of weeks, he's intending to tender. So they're just wrapping up final, dot the i's, cross the t's on the split of that. And that's what he said he would, the designs and stuff that form part of that, he would share with the committee when he's done.
Why bother? It's gone ahead. We have no say, no, I'm being facetious, but it's kind of. That's nice.
Alice?
Yeah, I had the impression we were gonna have some oversight on what happens with ramps here, and it just doesn't, I don't think our committee has really made any decisions about it, and it's just kind of washed past us. So I don't understand what our role is in oversight on this. We've had a lot of discussion around it, but I don't even, I mean, I wasn't here for some of it, I understand. But like, besides having discussion around the ramps, I just don't feel like there's been oversight.
Did this group not, I thought we did have a discussion about the bridge ramps and sort of what, forgetting what the terminology is, but the tie-in where the landing is, where the boardwalk comes up and ties into the landing. Transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's like a little deck that's gonna be there so that that section AA could be realigned. Last time we met with, I think it was even Diana at that time. We did talk about that section, and you guys, I think, even gave a little bit of feedback on what that should look like. I'd have to go back and check the minutes, things like that.
So the design hasn't changed
No.
any from what it was previously that already went to tender. Because there's no design change, there isn't really anything to review. It's the same design that it was previously that we already talked about and council already talked about, and that was green lighted to administration to go ahead and tender, which they did tender. And the only issue that council had with this was they were not happy with the price that came back. Sorry, I got Doug and then Jan.
I thought that council meeting was, wasn't it like back in March or, it was, anyway, it was a while ago. I just realized it's almost November. So if it's not ready to tender for a couple of weeks and, then you'll have it out there for, a period of weeks as well, up to a month. You're kind of hitting Christmas then. So then it's quite the jump to get somebody lined up and get them to buy their materials and get that installed in your January, February cold weather, right? So I had not realized. Anyway, it just seems like the year is rapidly disappearing.
And to your point, Doug, like I hear what you're saying, but Winston is a very capable individual, and I have confidence in his ability and the process he's put forward, but I can't speak anymore to that project because it's not my project. So this is the information he was able to give me in a 5-minute conversation that I was able to have with him. So I can definitely try and have some of his time over the next week and kind of share some of that with him and see if any additional information can be shared with the committee with respect to the design. But I specifically asked the question, has it changed? And he said no.
Jan?
I'm gonna go and look back through the minutes and the videos and I would invite everyone to do so, because I certainly remember a meeting where we talked about it extensively, and I thought that we left that meeting with full conclusions.
Do you remember what the conclusions were?
That we were accepting it as it was.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? Ms. Juke and then Jan.
Thank you very much. Just a question for clarification for myself. Is it not the case that Winston or Debbie come to the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee to update the committee on the project, the progress on the Maxwell Lake Bridge?
So that was a request that we did have, but Winston wasn't able to accommodate on with his time currently. So I did ask and it was just too short notice.
It's not done on a regular basis, Heather, where there's some kind of a update to this committee on that project?
As requested, it has happened, I think maybe twice, 3 times in the past, I think, yeah. But not on a regular basis. No, it's not a standing item on the agenda.
And then one final question, if I may, just to get an idea of the group's, the extent of the group's oversight. So I understand that the reason that Winston and Debbie are working on the Maxwell Lake Bridge part of the project is because it requires engineering. And also it is funded by another group. Does this committee still have oversight in as much as they can on the non-engineering aspects of that project? Or is it simply completely separate?
Thank you. So for this one, Deb, like Councillor Stashik was saying, this project precedes the Beaver Boardwalk Committee by a number of years. So the projects were separated, and Winston and Diana and a number of individuals out of planning and development have held that project. It has never been under the scope of community services. And then the Beaver Boardwalk Committee and the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee were created, which then created the terms of reference that excluded bridge and ramps from the terms of reference, just because that project was already off to the races.
That's great. It's specifically excluded in your terms of reference. Thank you very much.
John, and then it was.
I had something to say, but I did want to just, for the record, agree with Doug on what he was saying, that it's astronomical how long this has taken.
For the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am hearing Doug kind of put it succinctly. I am now fearful of January and February. And then you add in weather. Yeah, so let's cross our fingers.
Alice?
The bridge and ramps are excluded from our terms of reference.
No. Lots of it.
Yeah,
I guess that catches me by surprise too. I knew that I always knew that there were separate projects, but I did not realize that that's not part of our terms of reference. Why did we spend so much time talking about it? Why did we spend that meeting talking about it, and why are we even talking about it right now? Why is Beth asking? I'm not picking on you. I'm saying, like, if it's not part of our terms of reference, what are we doing?
Thank you. So when we formed this committee, that was one of the first things out of the gate is, why is the bridge not in here, right? And that was because the projects were separate and we could provide input, but we don't govern over what that project is. Moving forward though, like we have today, our terms of reference are up for review. And I think it logically makes sense that once that project is put to bed, that comes into our scope as the Beaver Boardwalk, because originally it was part of the boardwalk. So I think this was just a process thing that occurred based on the fact that we had that project already started. Then we had a BBO committee that we transitioned into the community oversight committee of the boardwalk. So I think it's definitely something that this committee will grow to influence. Those are just my thoughts in terms of process.
So when this gets done, when this bridge gets done, or the ramps or whatever, it'll become part of the boardwalk again. And is there no oversight at all into this before these guys get, like, are these guys ever gonna get done?
So again, not my project and I don't oversee that department, so I would be uncomfortable speaking to that, but again, Mr. Russo has his marching orders from council, and I believe he'll deliver.
Beth and Tom.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jan, like it. We did discuss this and, I think I know, I do remember us saying that this was a problem. Of having these two projects separated, like it was awkward and that was going to be an issue that we wanted brought together. But I do not recall anybody saying it wasn't under the purview of our terms of reference until this meeting. So like I will be reviewing everything, but I do remember this has been identified probably even before Christmas last year, that having these two, like the bridge ramp project separate from the Beaver Boardwalk project was not ideal for this community.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, like what? Okay.
Tom, sorry, Jan, did I see you?
Yeah.
Tom and then Jan and then Alice.
Wow.
Having a little memory lapse as to the currency with the permitting for the work, is that part of that project as well?
What do you mean?
Like AEP saying it's okay to build around there.
Yeah, so separate project, they have their approvals that they have to get for the type of work that they do on the bridge project, which theirs is largely around hydrology, right? Making sure that that flow is maintained under the bridge. Whereas ours is about wetland disturbance, particularly in the riparian zone on the edge of the water's edge. Yeah.
You can remind me too at the timing.
Yeah.
Once the tender is out, does that mean the application goes in or? Is the application
For the
currently-
bridge?
Yes.
Yeah, so they have, as far as I know, all of their approvals as part, because you need to have that information to include in your tender document. To understand what you are requiring of your contractors with respect to how they do their work in such a sensitive environment.
Schedule. Files. Increase of exposure. My memory. So there was another.
For
For the piles near the bridge, they were concerned about possible creosote contamination when you go for the piling for the ramps, if I recall.
Yes, I think actually Beth knows a whole lot more about
Yeah.
that.
So, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What was,
I'm not really following either. I'm sorry. What's the question, Tom?
Just part of the application, losing the plot too. Sorry.
which application?
So there's separate applications. So,
Yeah.
right, the bridge has its own application and the boardwalk replacement has its own application. They're separate. They're completely separate projects.
Okay.
That are in the same area and are going to be tied together, but they're different projects.
I'm pulling
And they're
them together
different departments that are running. The bridge is infrastructure services and the boardwalk is community services, correct?
Yeah, it makes more sense. Okay, I was conflating the two.
Jan and then Alice.
I'm really rapidly trying to find the terms of reference. I'm still really stunned that,
It's a link in the agenda.
oh. I don't see it,
I have it open here on my tiny phone.
but anyways,
Yeah.
I'm really struggling to figure out why we had Diana.
Because it was requested from the committee for her to come and present. And we saw no reason why we
She
guys.
was at a whole three meetings. I don't understand why, we had no say in the matter, what the hell were we wasting?
You guys did have a say at that time because the project hadn't advanced even to the point where it was being retendered yet, right? So
Well,
you guys
if we
were,
have a say and we don't have a say, if it's not in our terms of reference, then we don't have a say.
but it was brought forward because there was a motion from the committee to have them come and present to you guys because you guys really wanted the information.
Okay.
But I've already made a
And
note for
it's
myself.
bridge-
I'll go back.
It's
and
water
put it
under
all
the
up.
bridge at this point. I really hope that,
Good one, Jan.
I really hope that it gets done. The main thing I want the bridge to be behind us.
And I think we can all agree.
And,
there.
but, yeah, and just. For Ms. Juke, I hope that really contemplate on when we might need people and invite them to meetings and stuff, so that. It was kind of nice at those first beginning meetings, Diana was here like all the time. Up on the screen, we could ask questions.
So even if it's not technically in this group's purview, the input from the group was requested and valued. And that's why she came to the group, and that's why the group talked about it, provided some input, some feedback. I'm sure that Winston, Diana, and Debbie valued the input that the group was able to give. And from council's perspective, I know council did too. So even if it's not technically part of the purview, it really doesn't, it doesn't matter. The group's input was still sought and was still considered.
I'll leave my the remainder of what I was gonna say until we talk about the terms of reference, because. Yeah.
And Alice and then Doug.
So I just pulled up the terms of reference and when I joined this committee, I read them carefully and I did not get any indication that the bridge was not part of our scope. There's a map that said, this is what's in our scope and the bridge is right smack in the middle of it. I just did a quick word search on the terms of reference and the word bridge doesn't even come up. So I don't know. There would in my orientation and my coming on board, part of the reason I joined this committee was because I was hoping that we could have some impact on both the Beaver Boardwalk construction and the bridge construction, because the boardwalk had fallen into disrepair and then the bridge was built and the ramps the gravel ramps had to be removed and there was environmental stop orders. So these are the reasons that committee was formed in my impression, and a reason a lot of us are here. So to find out now that this isn't part of the terms of reference, I'm wondering why I'm here. But I also just did a quick scan and it seems that it is in our terms of reference. I'm also very confused.
Yep.
Yeah, so Alice, thank you for that. That actually jogged my memory. I think where we covered all of that is in the orientation package. So I'm gonna go back to the orientation package because I think maybe there was a piece in there. Thank you.
Just before I go to Doug, I'm gonna go to Ms. Juke. I think she would like to speak to it. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Albert. Just to champion and echo what you were saying, again, just because something isn't under the committee's purview, which is to say that you don't have the ability to direct the project, that's understandable because of course there's engineering, there will be limitations on what you could input there anyway, and Heather's going to track that, how it was set up, so that's clarified. But the reason I brought it up was because I would hope that updates to the, as you've been asking for, and information to the committee and updates to the committee on that project would be a pretty important piece to your deliberations and your work, I would think. More information I don't think is ever a problem. So I would encourage that to occur. And Heather, just so it's not really my place to direct anything here, but just would like, obviously people are struggling for lack of information, and it would seem so be nice.
Yeah, just jot it down and I'll update you on, we'll chat about that after getting it added.
Okay, Doug and then Jan.
I am a little concerned about the timeline for the ramps, but our time is finite, and it seems we could probably have more impact talking about the FRIA stuff that I think is still more open for discussion, that sort of thing. Can I make a motion to move to 3.3 on the agenda? I don't know if I'm allowed to procedurally. I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's not really a motionable item, but yeah, we have, as a group, have a finite amount of time for sure. So I don't want to stifle discussion either, though. So if there's comments or questions that people want to ask, I'm not gonna take that away. Thanks. Jan?
It's just a quick comment. I was hoping to make it right after Alice say, don't worry about it. I think it makes it easier. We don't have to adjust the terms of reference. Because you're right, I think there's nothing in there that excludes the bridge, so. We're good to go.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing nothing, we'll move to 3.3 summary submission grant application.
Yes, thank you.
So
So I connected with our representative at West Fraser. Given that I took all of the feedback back from everyone, the consultant's been popping all of that into our document. However, they requested a summary sheet first. So what I did was I just simply put together a one-page letter. In that letter, I took the information directly from our application. Because of the timeline, they needed that letter yesterday. And so I just thought I would bring it as an update to you guys. So I just provided them the project description from the document you guys have already seen, the project background, as well as the estimated price that we had. Project objectives, which of course, increase current safety and service levels of the boardwalk, improve accessibility to the boardwalk to allow safe passage for wheelchair users in identified high traffic areas, achieve minimal environmental impact throughout the design and construction, promote outdoor recreation and engagement with plants and animals in a natural environment, and generate environmental stewardship and create opportunities for visitors to learn more about and protecting the natural environment around them. I did a small blurb out of as an excerpt regarding forest improvement, and then they will review that tomorrow. The reason I cannot put it up on the screen for you guys is because they haven't seen it yet, and this is a public meeting, so that would not be kosher. So that with respect to timeline, so the rep and I chatted. So I have for you guys the preliminary review of our documentation will occur next week, November 2nd. At that time, they will tell us whether they want us to, whether they're bumping us up to the next level, to the next phase. Because of the amount of money we're requesting, local West Fraser cannot approve that for us. So bumped up to the next phase, that meeting is November 16th. We will have an approval anytime. He said it can take up to, so anytime between November 16th and January 16th, knowing of course we have to do all of our maintenance in the winter. So I'm still working with the consultant on the back end, preparing tender and things like that for when we can just drag and drop stuff into there and go as soon as we have our go or no go from RIA. So those are the timelines associated with all of that. I should have an update from our rep at West Fraser. Definitely next week he'll give me a quick call, but after the 16th of November, if it is just based on like our next meeting is the 9th. So I'll have an update for what he gives me on the 2nd, but on the 16th, do you think it would be acceptable to just send a quick email around, or should I call a group together?
I think the email is probably adequate. Our scheduled meeting is the 9th.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Of November. Or you could bump it. Yes. Oh, but that would only bump it to the 16th, and he probably won't call me until the next day. So those are the timelines with that.
Is there any feedback or input from the group required once you get that update?
Only if they being West Fraser and Freya, if they have questions, they are, they're wanting to find it perhaps, but they want us to make a tweak here or there. If that's the case and that's the feedback, then we'll have to come together.
Okay, so question to the group then. My suggestion would be email update from Ms. Way as soon as she had it. And if there was input or feedback from the group requested, we would likely call a special meeting so we could get some feedback to them right away as soon as we could. Does that sound reasonable to the group?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, that's what we'll do then. That doesn't require a motion or anything, does it? Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay, are there any questions or comments regarding the summary submission grant application grant timelines? As we're kind of, no, that's okay. Doug, sorry, go ahead, Doug.
Heather, just out of curiosity, you mentioned that there was different levels of approval, local and they're further away office. Out of curiosity, you wouldn't happen to know what those cost thresholds are, do you?
I want to say that it was 100,000 or less can be done here locally.
Okay. So we were well above that threshold regardless. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Anyone else? Okay, if there's nothing further, or we move on.
I guess, a quick question, because
Go ahead.
riding on that, sorry. If for some reason it fails.
Yeah.
Can we march back to the local, bring it down to 100,000, march back to them and get it in as quickly as possible, or are we set back by another 6 months or something?
That would certainly be my strategy. Pulling it apart, smaller bits at a time, and then also the benefit of doing the project this way, where we built it out as a whole, where it can be split as required, is we'll be able to access other grants and get more done if we're not successful.
Yeah, but do you happen to know about FRIA itself? Like, can we jump onto the local FRIA ride? And
So they'd be on my list of other ones that we would apply to for sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right, anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to 4.1, terms of reference review.
So I'm going to pull this up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just before you start, would it be appropriate to maybe take a couple minute break and
Okay.
you can confirm for us whether the bridge is part of our terms of reference or not?
Well, if you're saying you did a word search, if bridge is not mentioned in there, then I think where the distinction came was in the orientation, which I would have, like, it's gonna take me.
It was in the orientation documents. the Terms
Yeah.
of reference.
No, I mean like the conversation around the bridge, right? So I feel like it was in maybe there where, and it was directed, I think from Beaver committee. So I have to go back. It'll take me,
Oh, it's in the recording. You have to go and listen.
it's probably gonna be in the recording. And then there was also like a bunch of documents that were sent out when the Beaver committee was established. And then Councilor Stashik and I met with the group. We ran everybody through kind of the rules and regulations kind of thing.
If I may though too, there was also recommendations for the formation of this committee that went to council, that council approved, and it could be somewhere in that.
And that was in that
documentation
package,
too.
yeah.
But
Go ahead, John.
nonetheless, it's okay. I mean, they're not excluded in the terms of reference, so marching forward, we're good to go.
Go ahead, Beth.
I don't really understand, like. We're good to go, like if
The bridge is under our purview. Because it's not excluded.
I don't know that it is. It might not be explicitly stated in the terms of reference, but it might be somewhere else.
Well, it's
That's what
boardwalk,
Heather needs to check.
yeah,
it's boardwalk that's all interconnected, so it's part of the boardwalk. Up until the bridge, the steel metal bridge, that's the only piece of non-boardwalk on the boardwalk.
I just think we have to remember that there were intentions laid out for this committee set by a previous committee that were born out of project that went a little bit sideways, right? So please just allow me the time to go back, figure out how we got here, right? But I would agree with Councilor Stashik that going forward, it is like if it's not explicitly said so in here, that's a recommendation you guys can give me today for these changes. If you want to explicitly in there so that this is not something that we face going forward,
Okay.
let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta share my screen. Doug, can you see that? Everybody frozen? Oh, it's not even on the screen.
Yeah, I can't see.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Doug's frozen in my screen. Oh, there he is. Okay. I just have to figure out a way. That's probably good. Okay. So as you guys know, we've had a number of different conversations over the past little while about the terms of reference, what kinds of things we'd like to see changed or amended. This is something that I was hoping to bring for council in one report. So I was hoping to do any recommendations from the committee regarding the terms of reference. Any maintenance or recommended changes as part of the maintenance plan that gets presented to you guys, and we'll cover that here in a second, as well as any updating regarding where we're at with the funding. I want to do all of that in one Beaver Boardwalk committee report to council. So for the purpose here, what I thought today is that we would just have conversation. We'll go through each section, have a bit of conversation, and then you guys can go away and make your motions as you guys had done, similar to when we did the prioritization exercise, right? So that you guys can come and make motion, and we could just do discussion today.
What are the 3 items again?
So the 3 items that will be on my December report is any recommendations regarding terms of reference. The maintenance plan. So if you guys have recommendations for Chad altering that in any way, so he'll give his presentation on that coming up. And then I'll do an update regarding where we're at with our grant application. Hey. So this is the bylaw preamble stuff. This is just council stuff. We don't get to do anything with that. Terms of reference though. So we have the purpose. Can everybody see? Do I need to zoom that larger? Do you guys need it bigger? It's good. I'll give you guys a second to read through that and just let me know. Feel free to jot down as we're talking. I think Tom, had you mentioned something about vision earlier? You wanted to talk about vision?
I think we've talked about the vision statement.
Okay.
before.
Great.
I can't say I have a burning desire to change it.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I'll comment on this vision, but I don't really want to get into it beyond just saying. It just always bothered me that fiscal responsibility is first.
I totally agree.
That's,
The first time I read it, I hated that with
Yeah.
so much passion.
it just seems a little tasteless.
Well, and this is a perfect example, Alice. That is an excellent example of something to bring up at this table, see the reaction from the group, and then you go home and you go, I'm making that motion, right? Because I think we can all see that I can just make it.
It doesn't even need to be removed.
No,
Just
moved, I said
yeah,
moved,
moves
yeah.
this.
I guess my comment is that the Beaver committee was council and administration, there wasn't public. So some of the concerns council may have been more burning toward the way the order was done. I don't think it was intentional. I just think it was top of mind for the folks on that committee. I don't think there was anything more skullduggerous there.
Well, I was there, I could speak to it. You guys are putting way too much thought into that. It was just a list of things that were important to the vision. There was no discussion about the order that they should be in. It's just.
But now
So-
my background
so,
coming out of comms, I get what they're saying.
yeah, no, I get it too.
Yeah.
So that's as Heather said, this is the perfect opportunity for this group to make suggestions if they want to have it changed to something else. Alice?
Okay, and then I go home and think about it, and then November meeting we talk about this again. That's what we're doing.
I was gonna do them all in one meeting, just so that it would be in all one set of minutes.
Okay, so
That's just easier for me. So yeah, when we come back in November, my hope was that everybody will have scoured through this and you guys have what you want. And then you come to the table and you advocate for that and we try and get the motion.
Okay, so I'll make a motion then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cool.
thank you.
All right, so that's purpose. We have vision, objectives. I'm gonna. The whole thing, you guys can see that. Like, I will say that a big part of the conversation at the BBO committee around this was we knew at the time that we wouldn't get it perfect. So this is your guys' chance to give us that feedback, and help us get it to what we know the work actually looks like now that we're functioning in it.
John?
So we're talking about objectives right now. I don't think what I'm gonna suggest falls on objectives, but I would like to use the. I'm trying to make an argument here. You know, that last few words of 2.1 is related to the boardwalk. Boardwalk is capitalized. I would really like to have an area of responsibility stated somewhere in this document. So that we figure out once and for all, what is our, that would include the bridge, that would include the graveyard section, you know, just, I think that's a really good thing to have in this document.
And I think that's a lot easier to achieve now that we have this map where everything is identified except for that one section, which could then just be itemized on the side. I love that.
Else?
So would that maybe go like earlier on as the definition of boardwalk? Like.
I'm just gonna, sorry, Doug, look away. I'm just scrolling really quick. I need to see if there's scope. If we don't have a scope section, I would probably pop it in there. So that's, I'll probably create a new section. Is it at the end?
I think it's at the very end, has the map. Like way at the bottom.
Oh, that's an appendix. So we would need to put it actually in and then you reference to the appendix, but that's for me. You don't worry about that. I'll get it in there. Sorry, Doug. Sorry, Doug.
So that would be a motion for next meeting to do that.
Yep. All right. Are you guys good with objectives? Can I go to deliverables?
Fred?
While we are at this section, would I be able to jump to a quick piece of the next agenda item, which is about this presentation?
Sure.
So this is just the section where it says that you guys received one presentation from administration regarding annual maintenance plans in February of each year. However, this year, I'm going to have Chad bring something sooner so that you guys can actually give input. And then he'll bring something back in February once the budget's approved. So I just wanted, like, if you guys had any that related to that one, I just want you guys to know that.
So does that require a change to the terms of reference then?
Or should we do it anyways?
Should we do what anyway?
Should we do that every year? Just have him come in December or whatever? And
Yeah, and so that's where, like, administratively, he has to meet the February date. If he comes earlier, we're just doing better than the terms of reference. And just where we're at this year, I just feel that that's probably necessary, but if we want. I originally tied a date there because it aligns with budget, so that makes sense. But I'm actually thinking about it now, if we wanted you guys to give, hey, we want this section fixed, it's almost like we have to be there at budget time. Right?
So
Like
that-
pre-budget,
yeah,
yeah.
that was going to be my suggestion, actually. You know, and that's why I asked if it needs a change. My suggestion would be that this presentation actually occurs quite a bit further ahead. I don't know what's appropriate, November. Because we need to make sure that if the group wants to give feedback, that it can be incorporated into the budget presentation that goes to council. Then once it's approved, like Heather was saying, once budget's approved, then there could be another presentation in February, once budget's approved, to let the committee know what the actual maintenance plan is going to be for the year.
Administratively, what I'm thinking is because our budget cycle has a tendency to change. What I'll do is I'll just say in advance of budget deliberation, so that when SLT starts getting me ready on budget, I'll get him in here with you guys. I'll put that change in like after our next meeting, and you guys can look at it and just let me know if you're good with the wording, unless you guys want to make that motion. I just can't make that motion. I'm not allowed to make motions.
Alice?
I think I'm a bit confused on the procedure here. So because we have a set amount of $60,000 a year, right?
Mhm.
So isn't that already in the budget? So isn't that so does the details still have to be included in the budget package? Or like I'm
Yeah,
sure I'm
so
lost.
60,000 is in, but how we spend the 60,000 is the intention of this. So Chad will come every year and say, we're planning on doing this and doing this and doing this. And then you guys go, well, don't do any of that. Spend all the 60,000 over here because this part's broken. And then we go, but that's gonna cost 80,000. So then if we have to go back to council, we're at least getting there as they're approving the budget instead of after they've already approved it. And now we're like, oh, we have to go back to council and ask for money.
Okay, but. Under the assumption that we're gonna do everything within $60,000. Then the February timeline would be fine. Like it would be independent of, you wouldn't have to do anything during the budget period. Only if we're going above $60,000 to need that flexibility. Is that right?
That's right, but I think I also want to give you, like, just the way we're doing budget now with our OBC's operational business plan cases, where if there's an opportunity to bring something that's a little bit more money, but it holds a lot of value, that allows us to go through that exercise as well at that time before all the money decisions are made. But let's say we're like, no, we got nothing this year, the whole thing was built, it looked great, we're just gonna maintain with our 60. Then yeah, but why not do that sooner than wait till February?
So and if I could add something too, it's highly unlikely that this would ever happen. But if the committee has an opportunity to discuss what the maintenance plan is and prioritization of it. In the event that council says, no, we can't afford to do 60,000 in maintenance this year, we're cutting that budget down to 30, then it's already been prioritized by this group. And then Chad will know and he can come back in February and say, okay, we only got 30,000. So we're gonna do per the group's recommendation, we're gonna do these 3 sections, which were the 3 top priority ones from the group. So I definitely think that there's some benefit to having 2 presentations, one, whatever your wording was prior to budget deliberations, and then an actual presentation in February of what the maintenance plan is going to be. So that makes sense to the group if somebody wanted to prepare a motion for next meeting to change that, so it reflected that, that would be, in my mind, beneficial.
When does council do their annual budget?
Oh, it's ongoing. We try to have it passed before the end of December.
Okay.
So, but deliberations, I think our first big budget session is November 18th.
Yep.
Yeah, so we have a 2-day budget session, November 18th and 19th, I believe it is. So that's where the bulk of the work gets done. It's almost 2 full days. So, yep.
But I have seen Doug, like I think last year we had our first meeting, like maybe in October, so it does shift, right? Which is why I'll pick looser language around just in front of budget, because I'll know months in advance when budget's gonna be.
And the February part's fine, because
It has to be.
well, I think we're up till March. But
Yeah.
yeah, the February wording is fine because in 99 cases out of 100, the budget's going to be passed by February. So a February presentation would be fine.
Are there any questions on the other ones that are on the screen right now that you guys, maybe you're reading and you want to clarify what the intent was, or just raise a point to the group for a little bit of conversation so that you guys know what you might want to do for motions?
Else?
All this 5-year capital plan, I mean, that's basically what that was pre-application.
Pardon me?
This, like, all this 5-year capital plan. Like
We're
pretty much doing that.
yeah,
Okay.
and then I'll just pop it into a simpler document for us, but that's what we've been working on this year. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the intent, moving forwards to flesh that out a little.
Yeah,
bit.
absolutely. Every year, we gotta date it. All right, I'm gonna scroll a bit. Here we go. Composition. The BPO committee spent quite a lot of time identifying various stakeholders, and council did make recommendation that these are the ones they wanted to go with. But again, everything's open for discussion and we have a full committee now. I'm just wondering, is this anything that you guys noticed was glaringly missing or anything like that?
Who's our educational?
Yes.
Who's our environment?
I think I, yeah.
Yep.
I didn't choke you up.
No thoughts on representation?
I have questions for the group on that one. It's been a little bit challenging to fill some of those roles and I'm not saying that they're not appropriate, they definitely are. But what would the group think about having any vacant positions filled by members at large if they're not able to be filled by somebody that's specific meets that criteria? Or would you rather just have a smaller group and have those remain vacant until hopefully somebody applies for them?
Well, I guess my kind of question and thought on that is recognizing I don't get to vote. I'll share with you guys anyways, is what would happen then, let's say in this instance where we had a vacancy for Indigenous representative and we left it waiting and calling, and then finally William was like, I'll do it. And we were like, cool. But what would have happened if that was already filled?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, like if we had just made it a member at large, right?
Yeah, good cause.
Because then I would have had to kick somebody else off to let him in, and I don't think that's
we'll make that up, we'll make that open spot and just move them up to a different spot.
if we have.
If we had.
Yeah, right.
We're completely full right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was, I just threw it out there for talking point, something to talk around. I have no preference either way. Alice?
I think that's something like if we come to it, it's been a year and we haven't been able to fill something that we'll can make a call at that time, right?
Okay, because what do we need for it to be an official committee? Does it matter?
More specific.
Like, say there's only 4 people that meet those criteria that applied, and then so there's only 4 committee members.
If only 4 people applied, we would have to bring the terms of reference back or a report to have council approve it to go forward as is, because it's a bylaw.
Right,
Right.
but 3.2 says if one or more is not filled, BBOC may continue and seek to fill the position. So is there a minimum number though?
Quorum.
So you need 5 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Two years, too long, too short? Thoughts?
Say too short. But I understand how you want to blood it, but it's just. And I'm not taking pot shots at anyone with this comment, but it can flow like molasses at times, so once you get going and then, okay, you're done. And then you have to get someone else up to gear.
And I guess there's nothing that prevents somebody from stepping down when they want, right? So if
Yeah.
it was longer, then, and you decided you're like, I'm busy, I got 7 other committees that I sit on. Right, you could just go and we'd have to fill your position.
I had a question about that.
Okay.
They can reapply, right? It's not a 2-year term and then done. Right?
Ooh, I'd have to go back and double check our overarching. Bylaw on committee's bylaw, yeah.
Because I have a concern about that, right? If we hit the end of the 2-year term. And the composition of this group doesn't change, everybody's gonna be gone except Bill and Joe, and I believe. And they would, oh, and Austin, but you guys would only do, yeah, short time and then you'd be gone too.
I'll double check the overarching committee's bylaw, but again, I think if we can't, well, we want to avoid that, right? So let's, yeah, I'll double check and I'll bring that to November.
And I personally think there should be a term limit of some type on there. In the event that we're full and there's people who really have a burning desire to get on the Beaver Boardwalk committee and really, really want to. If it's an open-ended thing until you resign, then they never actually get an opportunity to get on the committee. They can't even put their name forward for consideration. So.
And in practice, like for example, with other committees that I've sat on. If people leave and it frees up a spot, great, but we very rarely had instances where like people are banging down the doors to sit on those committees, right? So people haven't really left, they've stayed there forever because nobody wanted to replace them. They're like, well, I'll do it again. So I'll double check.
And that's what I envision here too. It's likely going to go that way, but say. A group is full and nobody wants to leave, but somebody new wants to come and they'll get an opportunity. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
That's fair, right?
Or,
It's make a bigger committee.
Oh, a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
yeah, well, I mean, that's a recommendation that the group should make, but this is a pretty big committee as it is. Most committees are way smaller than this. John,
Because I read it and I think.
No, I hear your point. I think it's
That
valid,
was the one I looked at it.
but I still think that 2 years. Doesn't seem like enough.
Because there's a term limit built in too.
well, that's great though. Yeah, you can think about it and if you wanted to see it up to 3 or 4 or whatever. Make it coincide with council's term. New council, new people. Whatever you want to do, you can bring a motion back next month, the group can talk about it and support it or not.
This one says, sorry.
Yep.
Committee members may, upon reapplication, so after your 2 years, you have to reapply. But after that 2 years, you can be reappointed for 3 consecutive 2-year terms, up to 6 years. Well, I will be gray.
That's the committee's bylaw, right?
Yeah.
It's by one.
Else?
I don't.
No,
I printed all this stuff off and actually read this. Some of it I remember.
I will remember that you have that too.
That's why I bring the book all the time.
okay, anything else before we move on? Okay,
Yay. That's application process, that's pretty standard for most of our committees. The difference on this one being that people have to let us know which role they want so that council can make an educated decision when appointing them. Elect chair, minute recorder, that's standard. You guys. Ad hoc projects, that includes things like engagement. So when we get to that phase, we have our consultants coming, but you guys will likely be pulled in on that to help support. And I think there may also be an opportunity to, what are those subcommittees? For you guys to sit on subcommittees as we discussed that one day. I can't remember what it was about. But that would be included in there as well.
comments or questions, discussion about BBOC member expectations? No, we're all good with those, okay?
This is just standard here. Meetings. This one, so technically we are supposed to meet quarterly or as needed, I think it was it quarterly?
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, we've had way more meetings than that. Haven't looked to see how that's impacting budgets and things like that. So yeah, if you guys think that going forward for the next little while, we should have more regular meetings, I think we need to potentially update this just so that as part of the report, I can include what the extra time for Councillor Stashik is effectively costing. Sorry.
Alice?
Yeah, I think I'll likely make or support a motion to keep it monthly for now, while the pre-application is going through, because it's really now the time that matters.
I feel there's, moving forward, there's likely always going to be something that's going to necessitate that the group meets more than once a quarter to be permanent. So, yeah, a permanent change to monthly meetings would probably be an okay motion, I think.
And I think it's also a little bit more consistent with our other committees too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not take any of them meet quarter.
No.
Absolutely correct. In the meeting frequency, we can make a motion to change it. Should it need to be increased,
Absolutely.
decreased, whatever.
And we can always cancel meetings too. If there's a light agenda, there's nothing to be talked about. We can always just cancel it too.
So we can kind of, depending on, again, it says depend on workload, so I guess that's part of it as well.
The only reason I would suggest change that just because the original intent had been like, they didn't think we would need to meet this much, right? But I think the work that you guys have put in should be reflected in our recommendations back to council, which is we've been here every month, if not more than once a month.
John?
I'm gonna mention it just for the sake of mentioning it, but I don't really know. I'm not saying that there is. Is there a need for a statement about people not making a certain amount of meetings? I've been on like SEAC board used to say if you missed more than 3 meetings, then the chair should have a talk and maybe think about replacing. And I'm not saying anyone's guilty of that, but it just. Like you said, if there's someone who's waning and kind of drifting off, and then you've got other people that want to get on, then that
Yeah.
might be a mechanism.
Somebody who's chronically missing.
Mhm.
I don't think this term's reference does the committee's bylaw reference that?
Not sure if it does. I specifically didn't put it in this one because of one, the volume of people we have on this committee is greater than most. And two, because it never ends up actually working that way with our other committees because we don't have enough people to fill them. But we can put it in and then the chair can choose to apply it or not apply it. Because it would say something like the chair will talk with them on strike one and whatever, right? So. Up to you if you want to bring it forward. I'm interested to see what the group would say.
Well, I'm interested in what the group has to say right now.
Alice?
I was kind of wondering about that too, like, I'm not sure if there are other people who want to participate on the committee, but if they're able to make it more regularly, then it might be time for them to have an opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sort of along the same lines. I know people that just love the boardwalk and are out there all the time and have expressed interest in, can it be on the committee, so. Yeah, if you've got rookies and there's an opportunity for them.
Yeah, and I agree. If there's people who are chronically absent, they really aren't committed to the committee and shouldn't be on it. Yeah. Sorry, committed to the committee. It's right there in the name.
We'll be committed soon enough.
What is right here? Any member of a committee who is out this committee bylaw? Any member of committee who is absent from 2 consecutive meetings shall cease to be a member.
Two consecutive.
I missed the last 2 meetings.
Yeah, bye. It's like, why have I even here? But and then that's what I mean. Like, I feel like that's not realistic, reasonable for people who are volunteers.
Is that there has to be a reasonable factor in there, like if
Yeah.
someone is legit reason
Well,
for not being able to be there, like I was on vacation for both
Yes.
times.
And that's why we put this in here instead. If a member must be absent from the meeting, it is their responsibility to notify us, right? And ideally, if you were all on vacation, we would have known to not have a meeting. And I think too, it's a little bit different now that we have the Zoom option. But contemplate it, bring it back. Love that.
But 6.3.1 is important, though. If you can't make the meeting, it's important to let us know. I mean, this committee's big enough that generally will probably have quorum anyway, but I've been on committees where people don't say that they're not coming. And the other people show up and then you don't wind up with quorum and the meeting's canceled, which is a waste of everybody's time. It's so frustrating. Sorry, somebody had their hand up.
I was just, yeah, I just some bit.
Okay, Alice?
Do we actually need to set a threshold for attendance before the chair would talk to them? Like, is that, or can it just be discretionary for the chair?
We're talking to somebody about being
Yeah.
absent.
No.
Yeah, well, it's not really spoken to other than in committee's bylaw, but it says must to be on.
I just think it would make it a lot easier for the chair to do so if it's in the terms of reference.
Yeah.
It gives that person something to stand on.
Yeah,
Other than that,
yeah.
a person could say, well, there's nothing to say that I can't miss by.
Well, remember that we are beholden to the committee's bylaw, so it supersedes this one. So theoretically, Albert could go to that one, bring that to the meeting and say, to the meeting with the person. I don't think we'd ever do that in front of everybody. Okay. You missed it. Alice is like,
Just terms of reference state that
it's in the bylaw, yeah, at the top,
it's in the bylaw.
at the top of this. Right
No, I know the bylaws. I just, my
here,
point is
right here.
it someone who reads the terms of reference? When
Yes, because they're now attached. So the Beaver Boardwalk Community Oversight Committee has its own bylaw, which then out of that, the terms of reference are derived. Here you see that it says that these are related documents. Then I'll go back to our spot. Sorry, Doug, look away, or you'll get sick. Look away. Did I go too far? Did I go too far? Right.
We have a conductor that does that, when I drive conductors, she has to sit in the front seat,
Mhm.
or she gets ill.
Oh,
She sits in the back seat, so she's nauseous and. It's bizarre, it's like, oh, down there.
Anything further about meetings? I do have 6.5. There have been occasions where we've gone longer than 2 meetings. And per the terms of reference, they're actually not allowed to go for longer than that. So it's up to the group, but I would suggest that that wording be changed to meetings shall be no longer than 2 hours. Unless,
Motion is passed.
yeah, I was thinking of the legislative word, but yeah, unless there's a motion of the group to extend beyond 2 hours.
and that is in the counts. It's in one of your guys' bylaws, there's word.
Our procedure. but-
Procedure bylaw, that's the one. Yeah, we could just steal that wording. So the motion, if anybody's gonna bring it, could just say, just steal the wording from the procedure bylaw regarding meeting lengths. Okay, budget.
Okay. What Beth was saying earlier about when we were adopting the agenda. I remember in that meeting where we did the first one where we went super long. I think part of it was because we didn't know what to expect. So sometimes I think you have a little bit better, like, if the agendas are just a little bit more fleshed out, a couple more details, we can say, ooh, this is gonna take more than 2 hours, we should maybe bump one of these items. And we can decide that before we get to the meeting and make change, like, it's just a thought.
So when we kind of undertake that exercise when we do agenda planning, I don't disagree there. It wouldn't hurt to have some more information on the agenda when you guys see it. But we do try and suss out a little bit how long each item is going to take and try and make it so that it's 2 hours or less. But it's hard to see.
I think I could definitely make it clear, like, even just so that you guys would know that those updates were verbal today. I could have just put verbal update next to it, right? So that you guys, that will be really quick, because I've done that on some and not on others, so I feel like that's a good practice. And again, I did add that in with, like, one of them today is gonna be like motions for consideration, right? So that you guys had an idea that that's what we're doing, but I can also add more information when I send the email out, if that's helpful for you guys.
Yeah,
We're just not trying to write a
I know
story.
you have limited time,
Yeah.
but just
It would be really.
Anything more on meetings then? Or we can move on to budget. And we have anything?
Let's count more. Definitions. I'm just gonna scroll to policy because all these other ones are just referencing other documents.
Oh, there's a definition. So,
Alice?
so we'll probably want for the boardwalk definition. That in appendix C. With this map.
Yes, yes,
And be a
yes.
little bit more. Detailed with. Okay, so, okay. Thinking out loud, sorry.
I mean, you know, like the pretty map. I mean, what? Not as good as Yum.
Let me see it.
Oh,
I
do you see the one in the neighborhoods? I think that one could.
In the highlighter? Yeah. Fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works.
You got GIS skills.
All right. So I feel like, oh, sorry.
Just on the education representative, just reading this again. Like I am a member of the Historical Society, but I'm also president of the Whiskey Jack Club, which like our reason to be is participation in education. So I'm assuming that's really why I'm education representative, because that's really part and parcel of what we're doing with that group. So, but does it need to be expanded a little bit, or is that okay the way it is? Like I was sort of like the Historical Society member, I just happened to be one. Anyway, yeah.
What did you,
Is that clear enough? Like,
what did you apply under?
I don't think I put environment, and I was a bit honestly surprised to be under education, but it does fit.
You can put all three, I think, but
Oh, right.
remember large environment and education.
Education,
'Cause
thinking,
I did as well.
yeah, thinking that my connection with the Whiskey Jack Club, because that's really part of what we are there for.
And if I recall, that's how your application was really written. Like it was about more like on the Whiskey Jack side of things.
Yeah,
But you are a historical board member as well.
so I do fit the rules, but it's like, whoa. Yeah.
It's up to you guys if you want to expand it or contract it. You want to make that recommendation. It's certainly valid.
Well, what would your recommendations be with someone, whiskey jack?
No, it doesn't. It would have to be more generic, like if you're involved in education activities involving community or something like that. I'll have to think.
I think maybe putting like, because you have the historical society and library board, maybe like naturalist club or something. Like,
Those two are committees of council.
I see, never mind then.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah.
And that's typical in our terms of reference for when we can't fill positions. A lot of times we'll go call up the library board. Hey, do you guys have someone that you can bring here? Similar to what we did with Jan when we needed somebody on the grant advisory committee.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Okay. I'll think about it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead,
I'm
Alice.
just curious, like that is my role as environmental representative. Are there like, are there any expectations in terms of like, should I be bringing forward material regarding the environment concerning Niagara Lake? Like, is that?
Yeah, so the intent, how we ended up with all of these different representatives is that we underwent a stakeholder identification exercise, right? And it was identified that we need somebody with a background in environment, right? So that as we move forward, if we have subcommittees, right, we may be like, Alice has to lead this one because it's all about plants or water or whatever. And that's exactly why we did that, so that if you do need to be called upon, we can call upon you. Yeah.
But there really isn't any special
No.
expectation of any of the.
Not giving talks or anything.
No, nothing like that. It was, and part of it was to make sure too, that we had as broad a cross section of the community as we possibly could. So, yeah.
I would just invite you guys for 8.6 as well as, I think that's the only one. Just double check that map and see if you think it should be expanded, reduced. The maps at the attachment at the bottom. This again just comes from what we had discussed with the Vivo committee. And this was kind of what was deemed a Maxwell Lake area resident was that kind of area and all of those spots. But if you think something else needs to be added or taken out, please let me know. And then our recreation and tourism rep, our residents at large, youth, they just have to be under 18.
Well, I was gonna question the youth representative if there should be a minimum age. Does it really have to be able to, be old enough to productively, right? Productively participate in the meetings?
That's true.
Good point. Right, and then we have our beautiful map. Everybody look at my beautiful map. This is our neighborhoods. What do you guys think, Alice? If you have something you'd like to submit to replace this, fill your boots.
That's a job.
Right? And then our old area here, so we'll definitely get that swapped out. All right. Sure. Is that it? Questions, comments?
It's gonna go up for a bit, this one,
Up or down?
stop, HMRA and F.
Oh, yeah.
That's different areas, right? What are those?
Maintained by
Right.
Burma, this one. Forest Resource Management Area. And the. So that is not, it's not coming to my brain right now. Over? No, but I feel like that's supposed to say Himba. It's, yeah, it's supposed to say Himba. Noted.
Yeah,
Himba-
Prima oversees that, it is officially the one who built and maintains the Happy Creek Trail.
Mm.
But technically in the.
Yeah, so that's supposed to say Himba, which is our people. Yeah, my bad. All right. So yeah, go home, whip together some motions, and I love when you guys bring those. You guys do a good job, and it makes a really good conversation. So it's nice to see. I'm done with
That was
that.
a good exercise last time.
Mhm. All right, that's it for now.
Okay. Any other comments, points of discussion, questions about terms of reference? All right, nothing, we will move. Go ahead, Alice.
We will know before our discussion next week whether or not there's anything about the bridge in another document, right?
Anything about the bridge?
Excluding the bridge in
In-
another
in an
document,
email.
we will.
Yeah.
Okay, we
I
will
read
know
that.
that before we go to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Did we go to the next one yet?
I was about to.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Discussion items, operational maintenance plan 2023.
All right, thank you. So we did briefly just discuss that. I just really wanted to, and it's too bad Chad's on vacation, just kind of open it up to the group for anything that you were like very specifically want to hear about from him. So Jan, for example, when you had the concern about that section coming from Himba, right? If there's any areas out there that you guys have noticed or even, you noticed like the rehabilitation bets that Whiskey Jacks did on that slope side, right? Things like that that are perhaps in the Maxwell Lake area, but aren't the boardwalk. Are there other things that you guys want to know about? Let's just have a conversation. I'll just jot down some notes and Chad will do his best to put all that together for our November.
Alice?
Yeah, I got something right off the bat, so, this like on the kind of the south side of the lake here, There's like a lot of peekaboos into the lake.
Yeah.
And the vegetation just keeps like, it's deteriorating and it's like noticeable year after year. That there's more and more impacts along here, so I think some reclamation and maybe, you know, sectioning off some of those to stop people from trampling it and getting like, I think a little bit more reclamation on that stuff. This, yeah, this one here, there's like especially here.
Yeah, I took my dog and I was gonna ask if that's
Yeah.
always that way.
No, it wasn't always that way. So I think, and even some of the kind of like all in between here, there's all these little game trail kind of things that have become more and more worn. And if we want this area to maintain its natural integrity into the future, we do have to be careful about erosion, even just from feet. I know it seems silly, but it does add up over time, and there's a lot of traffic in this area, so maybe adding some, just start small, start doing some of the reclamation. I think that's where it's concerned.
Don't need any motions today on this. I'm just gonna listen and chat with Chad about it, and he'll bring what he thinks we can afford with the 60. And then at that meeting, you guys can be like, not that, this, not that, and motion it up. Yeah.
I'm just gonna go to Doug first, then Alice, and then Beth.
I had three items. One is I'd be curious what the snow clearing schedule is going to be like for the winter.
What? The what? Sorry?
What the snow clearing schedule will be like for the winter. How often will they clear the boardwalk areas? So that'd be something I'd be curious about.
That's done by volunteers.
Yes, but not within the level of service that the town
Okay,
provides.
so there we go. Easy answer for that one. Second one would be how often the area is being swept for like trees and stuff that have blown onto the trail, or if they're relying on us to call that out for them.
Okay,
And then third item is by section R, the tower there's a bunch of construction debris. It's been sitting there for over a year. Just wondering if there's any plan to clean that up and get that out of there.
That's the old tower. Like, that's what that is.
Pieces of it.
Like it was dismantled and stored there with the expectation it would be put up. You know, within a reasonable amount of time, but it's still sitting there, so those pieces have been disappearing all over, so now it just looks like a construction material, but in fact, it was the old tower, like being stored right there.
Anything further, Doug?
Oh, nope, thanks.
Okay. Alice and then Beth.
Yeah, just about the reclamation, like, again, that if. I understand the town has budgetary constraints, and that is another good opportunity to volunteer as well.
yeah, Chad did, I think, 2 work bees. One recently for Thistle and one with the junior forest wardens, and like with COVID and stuff, he hasn't been able to do that, and it's made a really big impact, and it's something that he's looking at doing on an ongoing basis, because it was really amazing. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Why do we not?
I know.
That we do that
Yeah.
kind of thing. I didn't even know about that. Wow, that's cool.
That was gonna be in my report.
Oh, sorry, that makes all your thunder.
21 bags.
Yeah.
This kind of bag.
Yeah, but there should be photos. It should be on the Facebook.
We can do
page, right? Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Well, I could send you lots of pictures.
Yeah, send me some pictures, Beth, and I'll get comms to do a piece on that. Thanks.
Are you good, Alice?
Yeah.
Okay, Beth and then Jan.
Just following up on the comments on the erosion, and I don't really expect anything to be done maybe initially, but by the location of the tower that's down, like by the Beaver pond. I find that that bench is sort of inappropriate right where it is. Like if you have the tower up, like there's a bench right almost at the Beaver pond, and it does contribute to trampling down to the edges there, but at this point, I don't, like, I wouldn't put that as a priority, but it's just something to observe and think about over the years, that maybe that might be something if the opportunity came up, like if the people paying for the bench don't want it anymore, you might just take it right out and rehabilitate that trail system. Just a comment.
Thanks, Beth. Jan.
I probably, if the motion was put forward to get rid of all of the little peekaboos, I would support it for the sake of my dogs. who'd like to go for a swim. And I don't even, I have to check out that, I've seen people sitting on that bench and
Oh,
it
sure.
seems like a really nice location for a bench, honestly.
Lots of trampoline, I guess.
Oh, trampoline is trampoline.
Alice,
Okay, I guess this is, I'm trying to flex my role as environment, and like. Like, it's a sensitive shoreline habitat, a lot of the ducks nest along there, and it's just, I understand the dogs like to swim, and it may be wise to keep maybe one of those open, I'm not sure at this point, I'd have to get out there and look at it again, but just from an environmental point of view, having the dogs run off into the lake right next to where the birds are nesting in the springtime will disturb them, and that sucks.
Well, there was one bench over by the apartment building there, and it looked like it just, someone hit it with a freaking truck. And it looks like it's been damaged pretty good, and I don't know if it's removed or not.
Bench or picnic table?
I don't know, one of those those log benches and the half log and. See, yeah, right by where right by the bathroom on the apartment side there.
Just to the east side of the apartment.
Yeah, and I noticed that too, I was like, what was on here that hit that thing that hard? It just totaled that bench.
Oh.
So it's sort
Oh.
of vandalism or something.
No, there's a one. Unless it's happened really recently, but one bench was just deteriorating. And it got replaced, like there, is that what you're talking about? You can see pieces of this old.
Yeah, it was just collapsed. Like, it was just
Yeah.
like, I thought something hit it, like, it
No,
was like a pretty solid bench when I saw it before, and also it looked like it had been hit by something.
it was gone. I thought that's been replaced.
Like I said, it's been a month since I've been to the boardwalk. I've been
I'm
working.
gonna check.
I'm actually on duty right now.
do you know where it is on the map? No.
Wherever the apartment building is, and it's the walkway, actually right where the burger feed station is.
It's the Beaver feeding.
Where the Beaver feeding station, that's right there.
So you can.
Yeah,
that
I-
and check and check out what's-
Like what's a wreck?
I just thought it was like act of vandalism. I think I did a picture of it some time ago.
Just a suggestion.
Yep.
I know Tom, I don't know if you'd be willing, you're out there pretty often. Would you be willing to take a picture and send it to the group?
I think I have a photograph.
Okay.
I think so.
I'm gonna send the parks guys out tomorrow.
Photograph.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to send your picture, that'd be great.
Other thoughts for maintenance?
I pick up a lot of stuff on there when I'm on the boardwalk, like, it's been like I say, a month. But I see a lot of garbage. And I was wondering with, on the backside of Maxway, I don't think I've seen a garbage can, I don't remember seeing one, just on the backside.
That's something we've been challenged with because the guys can't access.
That's what-
But we're gonna look into some sort, we can't just have people piling up garbage back there, so whether it's more garbage picking, right? Or
It's the odd bag of dog poopers or somebody's candy wrappers, it's just. Pick the freaking things up.
Yeah, maybe some. Signage helps. Jan and then Beth.
The $60,000 that we talk about, is that? 60,000, and sorry if I should know this, is that $60,000 specific for Beaver Boardwalk work? So when we just chatted about peekaboos and rehabilitation,
be boardwalk area. Because this, right, says our area is whatever, this, so Chad taps into that largely for boardwalk because of how dilapidated it is. But if we have a project like, we want to shore up this area, we can, that's what Chad's gonna present to you guys, is we think it'll cost this much, are you guys okay? If that project were to go ahead, spending this much of the 60,000 on that, or do you want it spent on boardwalk?
okay, thanks.
Um,
I'm gonna ask a follow-up question.
Yes.
Then. Do those recommendations go to council?
which ones, these?
If it's not going to be on actual boardwalk maintenance, because I think that's council's assumption is the 60,000 gets spent on.
That's what I was
boardwalk
wondering.
maintenance.
Yes, so as part of, so that's part of the report that I'm bringing
Okay,
in December.
that's fine then.
Mhm.
Yep. Jan and then Beth. Or was that your thing? Okay, Beth?
I was just commenting, the Whiskey Jacks do a cleanup every spring. And this, those little gnomes that we find really weird.
Gnomes?
You should see what's out there. It's amazing. How did I not miss that? Yeah, people put these weird little things all around.
Garden gnomes and yes.
Yeah, little guard gnomes all through the woods.
Seen some little seen rocks painted with little
That's all of it.
pumpkins.
Yeah,
and just-
that is cool.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Anyway, there is a cleanup at least once a year in the spring.
Excellent. Okay, anything else for operational maintenance plan? We'll have a chance next meeting to bring it up again, right?
And if anything pops into your mind for the maintenance plan, kind of by this time next week, just feel free to fire me an email. Because Chad gets back on Monday, so we'll chat then around what he's got prepared.
Okay, if there's nothing further, we'll move on to roundtable. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Okay, yeah,
Okay, so I just got a report on physical polling. We had, how many of us, there was just 4 of us, it looked like I didn't have a lot of. But we actually, and then we concentrated on the section at Sutherland through toward X and W all around the Beaver Pond. And we actually gone, and behind the outhouse there at Sutherland, there was two big bags of thistles just right there. So we got 21 bags. Chad supplied the bags and took them away. Like we took them away because it turned out we had 2 trucks and he supplied the bags and it went really well. It was a really, really nice morning, Sunday morning. And we have done that before, but again, and people you don't really realize how many thistles there are, so they start actually pulling these things out there, and we're not going to eliminate them, but at least that prevents them from going to seed and blowing all over the place.
Okay, question.
And I have a little story on that.
Beth, is like with Thistle, is that something that we could do a communication campaign on at some point in the like and encourage people to pull it out, or is that not what we do environmentally?
Well, no,
Pull them out.
Yeah,
Pull
okay.
them out,
I
definitely.
even pull them out earlier, like if you pull them out when they're younger, they've got to spend all that energy again, going up, so yeah.
And that's what I'm wondering.
Sometimes you're listening back.
So if that's something that we prepared in like the spring, like as the snow is starting to melt, really get some information out there for people, because I mean, if they see it, they might as well pull it if they feel like it.
Yeah,
right,
oh,
while they're
yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
It's Chad. But yeah, and like the idea of the thistle pull is like Chad gives us all these bags and. You know, it's sort of an event, but if people want to go do that, great. Yeah,
What time of year do you normally pull?
I normally like ours,
August, right?
usually toward the end of the summer, just to prevent them from going to seed and blowing around. But sometimes I'll go in earlier in the year and just like when they really start growing and yank them, but you know, the end of the year, they come up this much, but they don't have enough time to go to seed to make a new flower. So
when do they seed?
when,
Yeah,
well, I usually end up pulling toward the end of August, like you'll see those heads. When they start, you know, they'll be in flower for a while and then the heads will go white and then that they can blow out.
when is that, like September?
September, yeah.
You see all the fuzzies everywhere.
Yeah, like we did our thistle till October 8th. It was a bit late, but it's still, we just have to be careful pulling them up, you know, but that's the only time I could really. You know, schedule it, but we did get a lot. Yeah, so.
Alice?
So would you be thinking about putting like something in the paper in August saying, you know, encourage people to pull thistles? or
Yeah,
something?
what
Is
I
that
just
what
jot
you're
it down
thinking?
is I'll work with the comms team to come up with a comms plan, right, and put it out twice per year. And then potentially we can help Beth in getting some volunteers for the big one that she does, but just letting people be aware of thistle, because I know that it's infiltrating our other parks
Oh,
and
it's
we're working,
bad.
and we're working
Yeah.
on some areas to try to choke it out, but it's futile.
There's a place, if you're on the Beaver Boardwalk looking to the west and what's it, Collins Road, there's slope there. There's
Behind
It's almost 100%, like we didn't go there, but that would be nice to get that thing out of there, like somebody working on that part. Like we just worked on the boardwalk, but it's gonna just be 100% thistles and not very long.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, that would be really good, sort of getting people aware, and then we could even focus them, maybe somebody will take that as a pet project. Yeah, kind of hold those every year or something. Yeah, because, now I was there was this delightful family, I was on what section, I was pulling an X and I looked over to Y to the east. And there was, I'll just send this around, it's just this, it was calm, it was just this delightful, I didn't know who these people were, I said. It's just fabulous, I gotta take your picture, I'll send you a picture, they said, sure, and the little girl brought me a thistle and everything. Anyway, this fellow happens to work for the Ducks Unlimited in Grand Prairie, and they're developing a wetland center. And they actually came in the spring to look at a Beaver Boardwalk to see what we had done. To sort of incorporate ideas, and they've actually featured the Beaver Boardwalk on their newsletter, the Wetland Knowledge Exchange, so we've been featured on Ducks Unlimited. So like and in the long run, it may be that, this area, we may, want to think of, this area is a natural area, it is unique because it's in an urban environment, like, and at some point we might want to think about an actual designation, formal designation as a natural area. This guy's name is Rick Murray. And if we get to that stage, he offered to maybe help us along there. So that was just a pulling, you never know who you're gonna meet. But that's what's the magic about the boardwalk is you meet everybody from everywhere. It helps you interact with other people and appreciate the environment, like, "Ooh, what a day. And oh, like this was wow. Anyway, it was really nice.
So the question, if you designate it, does it open you up for funding opportunities otherwise? Maybe?
If you, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. There would be, but that you'd have to research all that before you went ahead.
Figure
But that's something that he would be able to help us with probably if we did want to go down that route. And he offered to, and I was like, oh, what? We've been featured in the Wetland Knowledge Exchange. So that's pretty nice news, actually.
The one where the parking is, where that the outhouse is there. They got a sign a little bit further up by the guy's house than the brown house in the corner. And it's got 3 arrows, 1 arrow, 2 arrows, 3 arrows, 3 sparking spots. And then you go see those 3 spots right there, and the fence has been knocked over by somebody's vehicle. And then when you get up there, you see a car here that's taking a spot. You take another car that's taking up 2 spots. Can those concrete blocks that you park up against in a parking lot, can 3 of those be put down there to keep the fence from getting busted up? Because the fence is already knocked over. It's like this. It's on a 15-degree angle on one side.
There's so many things at play there, like I'd have to double check who owns that land, how far back from the easement, I have to double check in development services, but maybe the easier thing is to paint lines to show the 3 spots.
I bought a yellow can of spray paint. I almost did it myself. I just pull up there and just throw that on your list for Chad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just pull it up there and it's like, you can't, and it's always wonderful, tourists, I should call them. And it's just, they just don't get it, it's part of what you want. Else,
Do you have a picture of that? Can you send us that too, please?
picture of the player.
Yeah, what you're talking about.
Okay.
Anything else on Fairville?
I'm good now.
Okay. Tom, you on to the next?
Yes, rough figure we're a year in for most of us. I think there's some good progress. Maybe not quite to the speed that some would desire, but still a place I love to go, still a place that's worth the effort, so happy to be here.
Alice, you wanna go?
Can I see that picture again? Yeah. So. I just couldn't help but noticing. This picture here. It's beautiful. It's probably around this time of year, all the frosty tips, but. Is this actually, is this before the bridge is in? But there's a little tower over there. Which way are we looking?
East, yeah,
Yeah,
so
So-
that's before the break.
so is this from the bridge? Is it taken
Yeah.
from the bridge?
Yeah. that
Oh,
would be
okay,
from-
okay. Okay, I love this view, and I can't help but notice on this picture that this bridge is right in the middle of it and it's gonna get tripled in size. And I just can't help but say it. So that's my,
The ramps will. Put a lot of visual barrier in that depth of feeling through the wetlands to the lake. I think there's no question about it. But yeah, that's why I was hoping to have a little more, but even if you get rid of one, even if you could get rid of the western ramp.
Okay, we're off topic, I'm sorry.
But yeah,
Way off topic.
Yeah, it's me.
Anything else, Alice?
that's all.
Okay, Jan?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay. Doug?
Just the usual question I ask every month. I guess for head.
No, Doug, no, let me go first.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I have an update for Doug. I waited all meeting for this, Doug. I talked to Jen and we're going, as soon as this gets off to Freya, we're gonna start that work. I've just been really swamped with budget and stuff, but we did talk about it. We've got a process rolling. I will have something for you before 2023.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
You're welcome.
Doug, did you have anything to report?
No, that's all I wanted to ask.
Hey, I think that's everybody except you. I have nothing to report.
And Doug stole my update, so I'm good.
All right. Hey, I didn't miss anybody, did I? All right, next meeting date is set for Wednesday, November 9th, and regular meeting date and time. And comments, questions about that? Okay, we need a motion to adjourn if there's nothing further.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, please.
All right, Tom made it. All those in favor? Okay, so Tom moved that and unanimously adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Doug. The meeting.
Bye, Doug.
You good?
Oh, ouch.